people come from all walks of life. They all have lives they lead. Any and all are welcome here to come and chat with me.
Hi, everyone. You know, when I was a young person, I never heard of the words climate change or carbon footprint, just not something anybody worried about. But we live in a totally different world, and that's what young people are facing. And I think it's very important for young people to get involved in politics, if at all possible, because it's their future we're talking about. Today's guest is 27 years old, and she has been volunteering with the Green Party since 2018. Time to hear a little bit more from Jade, Leeanne, Geleynse.
Thank you, Nancy. Happy to be here.
Welcome to the show. One of the first things I thought about is, was it difficult for you to decide once you decided to volunteer and get in politics, involved in politics, was it a tough decision to decide to go with the Green Party as opposed to the other parties?
It wasn't for me, but it was a bit of a jump from where I was before. Neither of my parents were very politically engaged. They just kind of got used to the sort of dog and pony show that I think a lot of people are. And so they didn't really partake in anything themselves, but just looking at kind of the events and everything taking place in the world around us. I kind of went through party by party a few years ago, just looking at their platforms and what I felt made the most sense for me. And it was all across the board, outstandingly Green Party, that just really connected with my values and almost just seemed really like a common sense decision. I guess when you really go through and look at everything and just break it down, the choice just kind of presented itself to me at the time a few years ago.
Very good. Yeah. Now, in 2019, you were really heavily involved, correct?
Yeah, I was living in Abbotsford at the time. I'm out in Chilliwack now, but I had just reached out. I can't even remember. I think I had just gone through the main kind of Green Party hub, and Kathy from the Chilliwack Hope riding actually responded to me and reached out. I think I had a prior connection with either Aird or Art kind of leading up to that. And she was working pretty closely with John Kidder, Elizabeth May's husband, as he was preparing to run in the Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon riding. So that was actually just outside of where I was, but I felt like the Abbotsford Greens had a pretty strong start as it was. And this other riding definitely needed some help kind of getting built up. So sort of jumped in and was honestly a little surprised at, how much help a single person can be in political parties kind of in general. I think we often think of ourselves as one person and only what we're capable of by ourselves, but there's a lot of people out there looking for help. So they got me set up pretty well. I ended up taking on the CEO position for that riding for the year. And then, was heavily involved with John Kidder's campaign, working alongside a handful of other very strong, dedicated Green Party members in that riding.
Right. Now, I had Art Green on the show not long ago, and we were talking about the results of the last election for the Green Party, and it was very disappointing, obviously, right?
It was a bit of a unique situation, I think, just due to a bit of lack of understanding, I think, in some ridings, and also just a split vote kind of. It was a very hasty election that was called. So for ridings that were, they didn't have a very strong foundation to go off of for that. And I think a lot of people were voting almost with a single issue in mind, with COVID and everything like that that's been happening lately, and the rise of the PPC party kind of, I think we did lose a bit of traction there. And then in our riding in particular, it was, it was a perfect combination of a few different things, I think. A bit of lack of support from the federal party and kind of guiding and supporting ridings who, were struggling themselves. And our candidate was in heavy recovery mode, as I'm sure you and Art kind of went over a little bit there. So I wasn't as involved in the Chilliwack riding. I was still kind of getting settled in a little bit, and I did reach out during the election, but I think we were just kind of running around and looking for direction, and you have volunteers coming forward, but not necessarily a place to put them right away in such short notice. But we did not super happy with the results, obviously there, but I do think it sets us up for the next one.
Yeah. It was a confusing time for everybody, not just for the Green Party, but as you said, it was such a hasty election. So, and then in the middle of COVID, it's like, what do you do? Where do you go? And so it was a tough time, right?
Yeah, and people trying to strategically vote in certain ways, I think. If they wanted to get rid of Trudeau, it was like, oh, well, I better vote Conservative. And, in my previous hometown of Abbotsford, they've never not been Conservative. So it's not much of a strategic vote if you look at it like that. But
so now, where are you moving forward with the Green Party? What is your involvement going to be?
Yeah, so we have our AGM set for December 6th. If anyone is interested, they can reach out and get a link to that. It'll be held online, but the previous CEO is stepping down from that position. So having been in that position before, I think it's a pretty good role for me to step into here. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think we're kind of expecting another snap election to be called over the next couple of years here with the minority government still in place. So it's just really bringing our community up to a level where when that does happen, we can respond to it quickly, and just having ongoing activity regardless of whether it's an election or not. These issues are every day. They're around us all the time, and there's a lot that we can be doing outside of an election to help progress in a different direction.
For sure. By the way, I've never called him Art, but Arthur and I, one of the things I had asked him about is how closely the Green Party, whether it's him or you or anybody else, or wherever their riding is, are involved with or connected to people like Tim Cooper, for instance, who speaks a lot about climate change. And he was saying that they do work hand in hand, correct? With a lot.
Yeah, no, Tim Cooper has been fairly active with our team out here. Obviously has a lot of other things on the go, teaching at UFB and whatnot. But even when I was over in Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon, he did come out and do a presentation for us on climate change. He comes at it from a very professional academic standpoint, and that's always beneficial. But I think the hard call for some of us to make in pursuing specifically climate related things in politics is this partisan versus nonpartisan. I mean, the Green Party obviously kind of holds its spot pretty well for the environmentally conscious, party out there. Mm-hmm. But regardless of whatever party is in power, we still want those kind of values near the top of the list, and to be able to move forward with that. So that does, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself too far as kind of this extremist that's diehard set with this one party. It's going to be harder to gain kind of any traction for the greater good through efforts like that.
Now, putting politics aside for a minute, how are you looking at the world right now?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm 27 years old, so I am currently without any kids. I've got a couple cats, but we are planning in the very near future to start building a family, and that is a pretty big concern for me when I look around. I mean, I feel like my own future is very up in the air as it is. So I know I'm not alone in kind of the struggle that my generation is feeling in, the choices, the balance between having a child or not having a child. But I think I'd like to stay more optimistic, and, you can raise a kid that will end up, helping progress this world as well too. So just kind of doing what I can and trying to build towards a better future that is not only, environmentally conscious and aware, but also just socially. There's a lot of gaps that I think need to be filled, and a lot that I think we need to recognize when it comes to the value of human beings just as human beings, and not necessarily as contributors to, through a job or through financial means. The idea that you have to be working to be of worth and to deserve a house or food and things like that. I really think that we need to kind of restructure those ways that we're thinking. And there's a lot to tackle. So there's a lot of ways that we can all kind of step forward and take that in. But I think that's a pretty big motivator for me, and just how things are going right now. And that shapes your kind of everyday decisions as far as spending and saving and that kind of thing goes, but also, the larger, bigger picture of the people that you're supporting, and whether, your action or inaction, what that's saying and how that's contributing to how things are unfolding.
And I think the worst part is inaction.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. This kind of growing sense of apathy, specifically around climate change. There's some really great information out there to kind of look into it, but it is a very heavy, big topic. And I think that makes it, on one hand, all the more serious and more important to look into, but on the other hand, a lot harder to look into and to come to terms with, because it does feel very daunting and depressing at times. And with the everyday challenges we all face, it's a lot to add on to the to-do list, I guess.
For sure. Now, with your group of friends, like I'm talking about people close to your age, do you talk about the future at all, about climate change? Do you get together and just have serious discussions?
Mm-hmm. I think it varies for me personally, depending on the person. I do have quite a few. Everyone in my personal life knows where I stand on these issues. And I've had some really great conversations as a result of it, not necessarily, coming to an agreement every single time and, just going back and forth. But a lot of it is just coming to better understand other people's perspectives and the way they think and how they think, because you're never going to get anywhere just appealing to people that kind of think and see things in the same way as you. I do wish there was more of it going on. I don't think we, as much as my generation has come in and changed a lot and done a lot, achieved a lot, all of the things, breaking down a bunch of boundaries and previous mindsets that we've held, I think there still is a long way to go. And it's hard, the things that we have to, I guess, overcome or move lower onto our priority list in order to really consider and do something about what's going on.
Well, let's face it, you guys got a heavy load dumped on you. Really?
And every generation has before. Like I can't imagine what it would be like to, be in my grandparents' generation, coming over during the Second World War and things like that. When you kind of put it into comparison, I think every generation has had huge battles that they've had to face and things that they've had to overcome, whether that's just through kind of social generational conditioning, or external factors. But we definitely have a few things on the go as well too.
Yeah, this one's totally different. It's interesting because I was just thinking about like the power we have that most people don't even realize, that if you just can connect with other like-minded people and then you can move forward, almost like pushing the barrier.
Absolutely.
People just stop burying their heads in the sand, right? And how do you get that? That's the question. How do you get that?
It is, it does take effort. I think it's not just deciding that you're gonna well, I guess it is that decision, deciding that, realizing that you don't have those kind of connections or the kind of relationships or conversations in your personal life that you'd like to, and then making the effort to instead of scrolling through social media online, taking a couple minutes instead to look up the different organizations and groups that are active in your community. And I would say, especially because of the age of the internet, and more so because of kind of the last year or two now in COVID, has really sort of shifted a lot of things online and created more opportunities for people to connect from their own homes. I still do prefer face-to-face anytime if possible. But I think, just realizing and recognizing that what you're looking for is important, and it affects you heavily. We're extremely social creatures as human beings, and not so far back in our kind of timeline here on Earth, that was a directly related to our survival rate, was the communities that we set up and how engaged and involved and strong those were. And I think there's a lot of different ways in it. It's something as simple as, just going on a group hike that I know some local organizations and like Mount Waddington's and whatnot organizes. It doesn't have to be necessarily focused around a conversation on this big daunting subject. It can really just be connecting as humans, and the rest will kind of follow and progress naturally as the relationships deepen.
Right. Now, on that note, what do you do for fun, for amusement?
I always laugh at this one because I feel like my list of things I like to do for fun don't sound that fun.
But there has to be some relief, right?
Yeah. I think reading for sure is that. I guess sort of depending on the book, I usually have a fiction and a nonfiction on the go to kind of balance some of that heavier stuff out. And then just writing kind of as I guess a natural extension of that. I wouldn't describe myself as like a super avid hiker, rock climber type of person, but I love being outdoors, even if it's just, a leisurely walk or kind of setting up camp for the day and sitting by the water. And just kind of, I don't know, those things and hobbies that give you kind of a moment of just ease, that are almost get you in like a meditative kind of state, whether that is, puzzling or painting, crafting. I really like learning just in general, whether it's a different skill that, I might go into really hard for a month and then kind of ease away from, but now I've got that on the list. But kind of a bit of an assortment, and it definitely changes with the weather, I would say, for sure.
Downtime is essential, I think, for anybody to have a good balance in their life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And not feeling bad about taking those moments as well, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Making sure that they're actually restful and not something you feel bad about doing afterwards.
Right. Well, I think we're just about out of time.
That went quickly.
it always does. People think sometimes ahead of time that it's going to be long or scary, whatever, but it just goes by so fast. But I forgot to mention something, by the way, before we go that, because you are currently working, you're employed, right? At Leb's Dairy Market in Abbotsford?
They're just a new local grocery store. They started up during COVID as an online store offering delivery of locally made goods. So I was originally brought in to do events there before, when we had a different project in mind for that space. And then with COVID, our needs just shifted. And I just was brought in to support the connections between local farmers and vendors. And now kind of progressing outward from that. I guess it's the who then more than the what that I look for in my jobs. And they're a really fantastic team, very conscientiously minded as far as, sourcing local and the bigger ripple effects that has in our community. And something about the chaos of startups I seem to really enjoy.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, figuring it all out and getting something started. It's exciting.
Well, you mentioned puzzling, so I think that's all part of the same type of thing.
I never actually made that connection myself, but I think you're right.
Anyway, on that note, I'm just going to say goodbye to the audience. So just hang on. Thank you. everybody, I really hope you enjoyed this thing. And if at all possible, get involved in whatever that way that works best for you. If you can go out there physically. And like years ago, I volunteered at one of the parties just to find out what it was like, what took place. And it was a really great experience, even though I later didn't support that party, but it was still good to get to know, and you learn so much. And Jade, thank you so much for doing this with me, and hopefully we can do this again. And to you, the audience, thank you for watching the show. I hope you continue to watch. I hope you subscribe, and take care, and peace out, everybody.
Thank
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.